Well, I think ever since hoping fantasy does require a map. And fantasy then expect, or I expect it too. I like maps. I even like real world maps and all that, but I certainly like fantasy maps, and part of my fantasy books have been set in the secondary world. Damon Knight once famously said that he would never read a book with a map in the front, so. So Damon was wrong about a number of things, but as well as being the founder of Clarion and writing about things.
Well, Damon was like Chairman Mao, and right 51% of the time, you win.
Particularly with having fantasy, which of course is what A Song of Ice and Fire is, the setting is very important. Those of you who are in creative writing courses, literary courses, will know about the elements of fiction, and you'll have teachers probably back in high school talk to you about character and plot and theme and all of the different elements that go into the short story. And setting is usually in that list, but it's usually way down the list. It doesn't get a lot of attention because if you're writing about the real world or the mundane world, as a science fiction writer would say, it's the world that's all around us. You don't have to describe what an office looks in any detail. People know what an office looks or a living room or so forth, or they know what you'll find in New York City or a farm in Kansas. But if you're really dealing with totally made-up places, we wouldn't know what the Shire looks like if the Tolkien tells us what the Shire looks like and draws a map, and you see the relations we place to each other. You learn a little about history and how long it's been in place, and that gives a verisimilitude to it that is equal to a mainstream writer just saying, I was born on a farm in Kansas. You can't do that without doing some world building in fantasy or science fiction to some extent. Tolkien's first breakthrough in America was in the late 1960s. He wrote Lord of the Rings in the 50s, but it was Caledonian hardcover and only in England. Very few copies made it across the ocean until Ace Book discovered that there was a lapse in the copyright laws, so they pirated it and put out an unauthorized paperback edition, which actually forced Tolkien to license it to Valentine Books, which put out the authorized edition, and they became enormously popular, particularly with young people, college students in the 60s. And a lot of people I knew had a poster on their wall, a Tolkien poster, but it's interesting me coming back, what was that poster? Was it a portrait of Gandalf? Was it, Frodo and Sam walking somewhere? Was it Aragorn with his sword? No, none of those things. It was a map of Middle-earth. That was the poster that sold millions of copies to the students in the 60s. Middle-earth was a character in that book. Middle-earth, the setting, was as vivid and important as everything else. And there's been a Tolkien calendar now, which has been going on for half a century. Every year there's a new Tolkien calendar, something that I'm trying to imitate with my Westeros Ice and Fire calendars, which have been coming out for like 10 years now. But you look at the Tolkien calendar, and even without reading any legends, you know these places. You just have to look at the art that the painters, that the artists are creating. Okay, that's Rivendell. That's Minas Tirith. That's the Shire. Oh, here's one where they're in the mines of Moria. Totally made up places, but we know what they look like. We see an image in them, we instantly recognize them, just as we recognize images of Paris, or Angkor Wat, or any of the places that exist in the real world, the Taj Mahal. Tolkien created his world with such detail that his fantasy places took on a tangible life in our imaginations and live there still. And I think all of the great fantasy books do that. Narnia, we know what Narnia is like. Oz, Robbie Howard's Tiberian Age, and hopefully my own Westeros. These places have been built with such detail that they're as real to millions of readers as Thailand or Mexico or, Berlin. And that's terrific as far as I'm concerned. That's very cool, and I think it is necessary, a very strong sense of place and setting for fantasy books. Do they have true for science fiction?